Hello there and welcome back to Laurence Plays Factorio Space Age, where I've finally decided I've made enough of a mess out on Fulgora that it's time to move on to another planet and start seeing what's going on over there. So, welcome to Vulcanus. This is the second planet, well the third planet if you include Norvis, but the next one I went off to, and it's another weird one, so let's have a bit of a look around. First things I'm going to talk about are, well, what the actual planet itself is like. So you can see there's these massive lakes of lava, which I'm not going to go and swim in because that seems like a really bad idea. So there's instead of water, we seem to have a load of lava. We've also got these vents over here that produce sulfuric acid. So you can stick a pump jack on those and quite literally mine sulfuric acid straight out of the ground. So that's fun as well. We've also got another new resource in the form of calcite over here. So this is another thing you can dig up with a mining drill, and it's another resource. We'll take a look into that and see what we can do with it a little bit later. There are coal patches on this planet as well, but they are basically just normal coal patches, except they're quite a bit bigger than the ones I'm used to. So and there don't seem to be any too close to me right now, so I won't go and show you one of those. But we also find that if I start taking some of these rocks apart, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. Okay, I get some sulfur out of these ones. That's interesting. If I beat this rock up, you can see over there on the expected resources over there on the right hand side, there's some purple stuff as well, and that's tungsten. So if I destroy this rock like that, you see it gets some tungsten ore. I get 12 pieces of that out of the rock, and that's quite nice because, well, tungsten is a new metal. It sounds like it's going to be really, really useful for building strong things. So we'll take a bit more of a look at that in a moment. That's really quite nice. But also look up here on the mini map. You can see these weird red hatchings, and that's not something we've seen before. And those are they're a warning sign essentially. So let's have a little bit of a look around over here inside this warning, this alerted red area, because I suspect there's going to be something in here that we don't really want to know about. Yes, there we go. So this is the danger out on Vulcanus, and these guys are called demolishers. They are out. Getting zapped a little bit. Right, these guys are called demolishers. They are essentially, basically they're the sandworms from Dune, except they're sort of rocky lavary worms, and they have quite a lot of different ways to make themselves unpleasant. Like, for example, if they run into you, you'll have a bad day. They also really dislike you building things in their territory. So if I put down some pipes here like this, in a moment this worm will notice those pipes. There we go. It's turning around now. It's getting angrier. It's speeding up. It's getting red and engorged and just generally angry, and yeah, it really dislikes those pipes. It's just going to ram through them, and that'll happen. Oh dear, my bots are turned on. No, turn the bots off. There we go. Come back. Okay, they've come back. Right, so you can see that building things out here is not such a great idea because you've got these guys in the way. Now, the other thing that makes him a little bit difficult, if I shoot him a bit, well, he'll attack back quite hard. You see the sort of gouts of lava geysers. He's got these big clouds of dust heading out. Generally, they're not very nice, and they can also cause these sort of explosions. Again, explosions of lava. There's the dust geysers. You move a little bit more slowly whenever you're being attacked by a demolisher as well, because they upset your exoskeletons. So, in general, they're just not really a particularly nice idea, and shooting at them like that is not wise. You might also have noticed, if you're observant, that it's now no longer damaged, so they heal really, really quickly as well, and they're also very, very tough. So dealing with them is a little bit interesting. If I run away a little bit, so I'm in a slightly safer area, like this, and they can go straight through the lava patches as well, which I can't, and through the cliffs, and they're just generally straight through everything, so they're quite dangerous. So I've run away a little bit to where it's hopefully a bit safer. Each demolisher, though, has its own territory, its own area that it'll play around in. So you can see here we've got a line drawn around the back border here. And this demolisher that I was playing with a moment ago, he won't actually leave this area unless he's actively chasing me. So I'm probably fairly safe over here. I think he'll have got over being shot a little bit by the time he gets out this way. And so you get a different demolisher in each different area that they play around in. And once you manage to kill a demolisher, that area is then completely safe. You won't ever get another demolisher appearing in that area, so you don't need to worry about them anymore. And so in a way, that makes them a little bit less dangerous than the biters. They will never expand and come out and find your factory, but if you build anything in their area, they'll come over and ask you what you're doing almost immediately. Fortunately, the map gen is kind enough that you get a little bit of undemolished territory to start off in at the beginning when you first land on the planet. So you do have a safe area to start building in and get yourself ready and up and running and so on before they come in and start doing unpleasant things to you. Unfortunately, that starting area, it doesn't contain any proper tungsten patches. So yeah, you can go around, you can punch a few rocks and things, and you can get a little bit of tungsten out of those, but you don't have any nice patches that you can mine. There are some scattered around, like this one down here, 3 million tungsten ore there, but as you can see, that's out in demolisher territory, so going after that one would be a little bit dangerous, at least until you've dealt with the demolisher. The good news is that I came over to the planet with a decent amount of green ammunition, and some turrets, and some lightning turrets that I'd made on Fulgora, so I was able to make reasonably quick work of a demolisher. These turrets didn't seem to agree with that, but I managed to kill off a couple of them relatively easily, and so that freed up a bit of space, and I was able to start harvesting the tungsten. Notably, the day-night cycle out on Vulcanus is very, very short. The planet spins very quickly, and that means that if you decide you want to go down the path of using solar power, you don't need an enormous number of accumulators in order to keep everything running, and you get quite a lot of solar power out of your panels because you're quite close to the sun, so it is quite an effective way of keeping your base up and running. However, I decided to move away from solar relatively quickly, so this area down here, yes, it's providing some power. No, it's not. We're not really using an enormous amount of it. Instead, it turns out that if you put calcite into the sulfuric acid, both of which are very, very easy to obtain on this planet, then you get out enormous quantities of steam. So you can see here, we're bringing in some of the calcite, putting it into chemical plants with sulfuric acid, boom, out comes the steam, and that's really hot steam as well. It's 500 degrees, so we can then pump that into these turbines, and this is how I'm generating power on this planet, and this is working much more effectively. You're then also able to turn the steam into water by condensing it in more chemical plants over here, and that allowed me to get a decent supply of water. Initially, I started off by bringing ice down from space, and that worked, but I found that it wasn't really dropping fast enough. The spaceship, my space platform in orbit, wasn't collecting the ice fast enough to keep up with the voracious appetite of the factory when it was running at full speed. So that little trickle of tungsten I was getting out from punching rocks and things, that allowed me to get started, which was very useful, as I'm sure you can imagine. And one of the best things about Vulcanus is you can actually harvest lava with an offshore pump like this. So this offshore pump is literally pulling lava out of this lake and passing it down these pipes. We're not going to ask why the pipes aren't melting when the lava is 1500 degrees C. I'll look up the melting point of iron and let you know, but I feel like that might be a little bit dodge. Especially when we come up to this next stage, we see we're putting it into the foundries along here, and then we're able to produce, and then with a little bit of calcite added in as a sort of, I don't know, a flux perhaps, we're then able to produce molten iron, which goes into this pipe, and molten copper, which goes into this pipe. So yes, you heard me right. We are in fact pumping molten iron down an iron pipe. So yes, great. But you know what? Factorio logic. We won't argue too much with it. I'm sure we pumped worse things through pipes in the past, but in space exploration, like antimatter and plasma and things, and so on and so forth. But anyway, yes, that works really nicely. If I just dump some of this for demonstration purposes. There you go, you can see that now we're pulling in the lava out of these pipes, the foundries are running merrily and filling these pipes back up again with the molten iron. And as a byproduct, we also produce quite a lot of stone. So stone is never in a shortage on this planet because you get so much of it out when you make iron and copper. And so I've been disposing of that. Well, we've been making some landfill down here. I filled this chest up and then I went, hang on a minute, it's going to cost an absolute fortune to get any of this landfill off planet. So I don't even know why I've been doing that, but it was there, so it seemed like a good idea. So we then have a load of excess stone that we don't need. So I'm just throwing it away, putting it back into the lava from whence it came. Yeah, this is the standard way of disposing of things on this planet, and you can get rid of basically anything like this. I've got some copper cable here in my pockets that I don't really need. Chuck that in there. Yeah, just throw it into the lava and it disappears. Great. This is wonderful until you accidentally discover you've thrown some buildings you wanted to use into the lava, and they're just gone. You can't get them back. I felt a little bit silly when that happened, but we'll ignore that one. The other nice thing about foundries is not just that they can essentially make you metals for free, because we've got as much lava as we want coming out here. You can see there's loads of it. Even this many foundries running off it is only taking it down by a few percentage points in the amount in there. And I could put another pump and another pump on there if I wanted, especially with the new fluid mechanics in Factorio. But no, the other great thing about foundries is you get a plus 50% productivity boost to everything that's done in them. Now over here, that's not such a big deal because, as we said, the lava is quite literally infinite. It's being pumped out in the same way that water would be in vanilla Factorio. But they really come into their own if we follow this up a little bit further and we take a look at, for example, these foundry machines over here. So these are taking in iron and they're producing steel. And they're still doing that with a 50% productivity boost. So that again is reducing the amount of iron we're using there. Similarly, up here we're making iron sticks straight from iron, so we don't have to faff around going through all the other different steps. We can make cogs, we can make copper cables, we can make quite a lot of different things without having to faff around going via plates unless they are specifically needed for something, in which case we can still make them. So they're a bit like the electromagnetic plants that we made over on Fulgora. They give you a 50% productivity boost to anything that you can claim is more or less an electronic circuit, or a module which is kind of an electronic circuit. These ones do exactly the same sort of thing for metals and anything that's made from metals. So over here, yes, okay, productivity boosts are nice, but it doesn't really matter because we've got that unlimited lava coming in. However, in the long run, it would make sense to take a huge number of these back over to Norvis and replace all of my smelting areas with foundries instead of the furnaces, because again, the 50% productivity boost. There's 4 module slots in there, so I can put even more productivity modules in. If I put in prod 3s, okay, they require biter eggs to make and lots of other productivity modules and so on and so on, but they get me a 10% productivity buff on their own, and that's without any quality levels. So at that point, we're looking at, I don't know if that's an 80%. Yeah, that's probably an 80% productivity boost just from using one of these machines. So you're getting almost twice as much stuff out. And because I think it's a 2-step process, because you have to melt the iron ore, which does granted require calcite, but I believe we can start dropping that from space at some point. So you melt your iron ore, so that makes your molten iron, and you get a 50% buff there, or potentially an 80% buff with the productivity modules. And then when you have another foundry to make that into whatever you want to make it into, you get another 80% buff there as well. Or I suppose if you really wanted to get the absolute most out of it, you turn it into plates, and then you put some productivity modules in the machines that are making cogs from it, or copper cables, and you get another layer of getting that productivity bonuses out of it. So you can get quite a lot of extra stuff out using these machines, which is going to be rather nice, especially when we start to try and ramp up the factory and make things even faster. They're also quite quick. They run at a speed of 4 compared to a mere speed of 2 for the electric furnaces, so they're twice as quick. They are a little bit bigger though, so you're going to end up with a bit more space being taken up. But, you know, this is Factorio. Space is kind of cheap. On the flip side, they use an enormous amount of power though. That's 2.5 megawatts, just over, versus the about 200 kilowatts or so for an electric furnace. They're hungry beasts, so we're going to have to make sure our power supplies can keep up. And so, once I had this nice healthy supply of metals going, I was able to start making ammunition, and that meant I was able to start going out and hunting the demolishers. I put out a load of turrets with, I think, red ammunition in them themselves, or maybe I used green, I forget. But that enabled me to gain some territory over here, the loss of a few turrets, admittedly. And then I was able to set up, okay, quite a lot of turrets, and then I was able to set up some tungsten mining down here, and this is, well, it's not running right now, but in theory, this is dig up as much tungsten as I need, pass it down the belt here, and then at the other end, we can cook it down into and turn it into the various, I think it's tungsten carbide, and then into tungsten steel, yes, that. So over here, we've got these machines, they take in the tungsten and sulfuric acid and produce, carbon, produce tungsten carbide. So the carbon, I think I was originally dropping in from space, but it looks like I'm now also topping that up with making it from coal over here, because dropping stuff in from space is a fantastic idea, but I tend to struggle with getting enough of it coming through. The tungsten carbide can then be combined. The tungsten can be combined with molten iron, and that allows you to make tungsten plate or tungsten steel, essentially, which can then go into making the orange science, which is the thing we do over here. So actually making the orange science was really easy. It felt almost too easy compared to some of the other science packs I've dealt with. There's just literally, you bring in the tungsten, you cook it with some molten iron into plates, and then that and the tungsten carbide are made into orange science, with some molten copper as well. But compared to a lot of the other recipes I've done, that feels very easy. And so we've got a belt full of that going up to my rocket silos up at the top. I guess the challenge on this planet is more in getting your whole tungsten system up and running and making sure all of that's working. They didn't want to make the science pack itself too difficult, which is nice. It makes me wonder if this is perhaps the first planet you're supposed to come to, because I feel like it's simpler than the other ones. It certainly feels like a much more normal planet than Fulgora did. Yeah, okay, your resource chains are rather different to the ones you find on Norvis. You've got different raw ingredients. You don't have any water, you don't have any oil, but you still have coal that you can liquefy into oil products. You have the water. You can get water eventually from the steam. You've got metals coming in. It all still feels like you're building things from raw materials. Whereas on Fulgora, you've got this huge mess of all kinds of advanced stuff coming in, and you're trying to balance it and recycle some of it and dismantle some of it, and whilst you're still trying to get in enough of the whole mere ore in order to make all the science packs you want to make, and it all feels a lot more complicated. This planet, the only really complicated thing on it is the giant worm things that get a bit in the way, and to be honest, they weren't too bad. So yeah, I feel like this is probably supposed to be the first planet, but you know what? Never mind. I'm not upset about going to Fulgora first. That was a lot of fun and I enjoyed learning about it. So where was I? Oh yes, we've got loads and loads of metal coming in because of the processing down here from the lava, and that's really, really cheap and allows us to make all kinds of things. But as I was touching on earlier, we can dig up coal and we can liquefy it, and we had the system going on over here. We're using this recipe initially, so this is the one that takes in coal, it takes in calcite, it takes in acid, and it gives you a little bit of heavy oil. And takes in 10 coal and gives you 50 of heavy oil, so 1 to 5, should we say? Because the other two, calcite comes in very large quantities. Sulfuric acid is technically unlimited, I think, because it comes out of pump jacks, and you know what they're like. That's exactly the same as for oil. They never technically quite run out. So that seemed like a good idea. It was 1 to 5. That got me started. And then I did another research, and I got the old traditional style coal liquefaction, which is this one, where you put in steam instead. And steam is kind of, sort of free-ish, hard to say. But with this one, every 10 coal gets you, well, effectively 65 heavy oil, and 20 light oil and 10 petroleum gas. So I feel like you're getting quite a bit more out from that than you were with the other one, and so I think this is a better one to go for, and I think this was the right way to go as an upgrade over this one. And I've done some cunning circuit conditions along here, using some of the new Factorio features in order to get that to work nicely. So if we follow this cable all the way over here, you can see the cable goes into a storage tank over here where we've filled it all the way up completely at the moment. But the idea is that these machines over here will only run if that tank is getting rather empty. So you see, if it gets down to less than 2,000, then these will all kick in, because we don't want to use all of it up, because, well, then we wouldn't be able to bootstrap it, because we wouldn't be able to bootstrap this one, because you need to put in some heavy oil into the coal liquefaction recipe in order to get more heavy oil back out again. So you don't want to ever run out completely. So we've got these ones kicking in when there's about 2,000 of it left to top it up, because we've clearly not got enough coming in. And then up here, all the way along here, we're saying as long as it's at least 10,000, then we'll run the cracking recipe and turn the heavy oil down into light oil. We can then turn it down into petroleum gas, and then we can make plastic from it. And we can also make rocket fuel from the light oil over there as well. And so that then means we eventually have plastic. That was a fairly complicated point to get to. But you need plastic in quite large quantities, because eventually you're going to want to ship stuff out by rocket. And okay, we could ship all the stuff in, but we've got quite a lot of resources on this planet. It's going to be a lot cheaper and better to ship it out, I reckon. And so to make a rocket, you require blue circuits, low density structures, and rocket fuel. And all of those require plastic in some form or another. So we're getting through quite a lot of that. The rocket fuel the rocket fuel doesn't require plastic, but it requires light oil. So we're making rocket fuel there. Then to make the circuits, you need the green circuits are fine. They're just iron and copper. Then you need plastic to make the red circuits, and more copper, but that's fine. And then you need sulfuric acid to make the blue ones, so that's fine. So it's just the red circuits, but you need to make the red circuits in order to make the blues, which you can then pass up to make your rockets. And the low density structures as well also need plastic. So there is a foundry recipe for it here, as you can see, which means we're getting that sweet 50% productivity bonus. But it still takes in 5 plastic bars and a load of molten iron and molten copper, but who cares about that? That's cheap. In order to cast the low density structures. Interestingly, that is exactly the same amount of plastic required to do the normal low density structure recipe. So I guess that's what you call game balance. But you still get the 50% productivity boost on here, so that is a big improvement. And as you can see, at the moment we have plenty of low density structures along here. I have been thinking about shipping low density structures from here to other planets, because they are pretty cheap to produce over here. And that coal patch that I'm pulling from, it's huge. Well, it's geographically huge. It's actually let down to less than 1 million now. I think it might be about time to move these mining drills over a little bit to allow me to get some more out of it. But I feel like there's a decent amount of coal on this planet, he says, trying to find another patch. There's one over there, 13 million. Okay, that's a good healthy one. Maybe I'll go and get that one, although it will require me to fight another 2 demolishers in order to get a safe path over into that territory. There's another patch down here, 8.5 million. Again, going to need to fight at least 2 demolishers to get down there. Another 10 million up here, another 2 demolishers though if I want to get the whole patch. So you can see a certain amount of fighting is going to be required to go out and get the extra resources, but that's what Factorio is like and about and so on. And I'm not exactly ripping through it. You can see how I've used sort of this much of it has been fairly heavily used, and there's at least twice as much, maybe probably 3 times as much left here, especially if I go in and put the effort into getting this a little bit over at the side. So there's quite a lot of potential over here for gaining more stuff, I think, and keeping this planet running for a good long time. I haven't needed to come out here and set up a full train system yet. We'll do that when it's necessary rather than just for funsies. Also note the little kink in the coal liquefaction along here, because I didn't want to bother going in and dealing with this demolisher at the time. So this can carry on down here if it needs to, rather than pushing into this territory. Another nice thing about having the tungsten available now is I've been able to build the 4th tier of belts. So we've got yellow, red, blue, and now green, which are that extra little bit faster. I've not actually needed them on this planet, but, you know, I can make them, and so I thought I might as well. And once again, it's all being done in foundries because, again, for the nice productivity bonuses. So we're getting that 50% productivity all the way through from cogs to belts to red belts to blue belts to green belts. So it's a lot less expensive in input stuff, particularly iron, than it would be anywhere else. However, the fact that the iron is essentially free means that you sort of that advantage is somewhat lost in the way through, and so it's not quite as good as it sounds, but it is still quite nice to be saving all these resources. And maybe I should start building these back on Norvis, but that would require me to ship tungsten over there, and it's probably going to be cheaper to ship the belts over instead. Let's fact check myself on that one. So making a green belt requires 5 tungsten plates, and you can put 50 of them in a rocket. So you can put 250 tungsten plates worth of belt into a rocket. Tungsten plates, on the other hand, you can put 250 into a rocket. So it's exactly the same. So I guess that means we might as well transport it as the green belts for a couple of reasons. Firstly, that means we're using the cheap iron on this planet where it's basically free, rather than pulling it out of mines that will eventually run out. And it also means it's taking up less space in the actual spaceship. So you'll notice that is a stack size of 50, which would be enough to make 10 pieces of green belt. The green belt itself stacks up to 100, so it takes up 1/10 of the space in the spaceship. Just as much space in rockets, sure, but 1/10 of the space in the spaceship. I don't see that as a huge advantage, but it is there, and as a slight side note there. I think that covers everything I want to say about Vulcanus. It's been an interesting planet. It's been good fun to go out to and get everything up and running. And yeah, it's ticking over quite nicely. We are producing, as you've seen, we're producing the science packs faster than we need them because I'm doing other types of research at the moment, which is a bit spoiler related, so I won't go into that in any more detail. It was a little bit of a headache getting things up and running in the first place, but I learned some lessons from Fulgora and set up a proper bus system here, so it's a bit less of a mess. And then we've got some sort of weird squeezed in stuff going on around the side, which seems to keep happening to me, but oh well, never mind. We've also got a lot more pipes than normal because we're shipping around all the molten metals to get to all of the foundries. I don't know whether it's best to build the foundries as close as possible to where the stuff is being used, like I've done here. We've got a machine making the copper cables here, in fact we've got 2 machines making copper cables and the iron plates coming along here for the circuit production. Or should I have been making copper cables somewhere down here centrally and have loads of them flowing up the bus and just peel it off wherever they're needed? I don't know. I didn't really think about it. I just thought, well, we'll bring it in as a liquid and then we'll start making it there. I suppose you can get a much larger quantity flowing through the pipes, so you're not going to run into throughput issues like you might with a belt if you're using pipes, but it makes it a little bit harder to expand when you realise actually you could do with a few more copper cables over here. So swings and roundabouts, but I think probably shipping everything around in the fluid form makes more sense, really. Then yes, all the plastic handling, as I mentioned, I've put in a bus area along here, so we're making all of the inserters, all the chests, all the bits and pieces you need for a fledgling base. The only thing that's been a little bit weird on this planet is making the rocket silos. Those I've been making by getting the construction bots to bring over the supplies and drop them directly into the assembly machine here, because I don't need very many of those, so I'm doing it slightly manually is kind of okay. That's another exciting new feature in the new version, actually. So you can say, actually, I would like to put some electric engine units in there, please. And then bots will fly over, the construction bots will fly over and they'll put them in, which is different and exciting and new, so I quite like that. And there's a demolisher nearby making noises. Where is it? I mean, it's not going to attack my base because none of my factory overlaps any of the demolisher territories, but I did hear, oh there he is. I don't know why I didn't see him on the map. I was going to say that feels like a really big demolisher, but actually it's quite a small one. It's just, I guess I'm zoomed in further than I was before. Let's go and say hi. Can I help you? Yeah, when you get up close to them, you realise they're actually kind of large. But if I zoom all the way out, then they're a little bit less threatening. Although, at that point, so am I. So what else was I talking about? Yeah, we've got all... Shush, I don't care. We've got all of the buildings being made over here, then low density structures, and then a rocket port up at the top where we've got the orange science being fed in much the same way I did on Fulgora. It's being passed in, filling up a chest with it, and then we can very quickly load a rocket with it whenever it's needed. And then as soon as the spaceship arrives, the rocket can blast off, go and fill the spaceship up, and the spaceship can fly away again. So we've got a nice healthy supply of it there. And then I've got another 4 rocket silos across here where we're trying to build the rockets a little bit more quickly. And that's for when a ship comes in and demands a load of low density structures all at once. So they can be picked up from here as well, as I was saying. And these ones are all automatic, and that demolisher is still shouting at me. Go away. Right, so I think that's everything I have to say about Vulcanus. It's been a relatively straightforward planet, I think, which is why I was saying I feel in a way like it's the one that's perhaps meant to be the first planet you go to. Although the options are there to go in whatever order you like, of course. So, thank you very much for watching. Next time we shall be taking a look at another planet which is a bit more biological, a bit more squishy, and a bit more terrifying. So, thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to come along to the streams, they'll be coming out every Monday and Wednesday, where I'll be carrying on with the game, looking at other planets, and maybe heading off to play in the freezer. We shall see how that goes. So, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.